Welcome to Unscripted with Marilyn Morales, where we share stories of triumph, where we take the ordinary person and share their extraordinary circumstance. Today, I am joined by two co-hosts. Today, they are Stacy Costa and Ellie Figueroa. They're going to be sharing their perspective based on their decade of life. So thank you, ladies, for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So today we have a very special guest with a very inspiring story. I know that when I saw it and I read it, I was truly inspired and had to have Justin Willoughby on my show. Let me read Justin's bio. At age 16, Justin Willoughby was facing death. Doctors gave him a grim outlook. Weighing in at 799 pounds, Justin had hit rock bottom. He suffered from severe depression, anxiety, and food addiction. Justin knew that he had to make the choice to change. 20 years later, Justin is now 600 pounds lighter and is free from addiction, anxiety, and depression. Justin is a motivational speaker, author, podcaster, and a health and wellness coach. He's devoting his life to helping inspire others to gain their life back. So let's welcome Justin to the show.
Hey.
Hi, Justin.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm doing really, really good. How's everybody else doing?
Fantastic.
Good.
Fantastic.
Good.
Justin, very excited to have you on today. I was able to see a little bit of video. You've been on TV before. You've been on several other podcasts and truly inspirational. So I want you to share with us a little bit about your story. Tell me how it all started.
Yeah, man, I can repeat this all day long because I talk about it all the time because I think sharing your story is so important to inspire other people. Just creates from your passion, from your story, it just creates this encouraging dynamic for somebody else's life. And I started very young, I could say. 14 years old, I was diagnosed with anxiety and panic attack disorder. I used food to cope with that. And I was constantly, because of the anxiety, I was just afraid to move all the time. Man, I just want to sit down on a constant basis because my heart would race if I stood up. It would throw me into a panic attack. So what I would do is I would just go to food to ease that anxiety. Then I would eat the food and I would get depressed. And it would just be this cycle that just continued. And eventually I ballooned up. This is just, a small snippet of the beginning of my story, but I ballooned up to a huge amount of weight. They didn't know how much I weighed. They took me to a children's hospital in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They put me on a hospital bed and weighed me in at 799 pounds at the age of 16. So it all started with a food addiction, anxiety, and panic attack disorder. And all three of those things just created a huge impact on my health.
Yeah, I can imagine. So with that, being a mom myself, right? And that's my decade of life that I have that perspective. And I listened to your story at 16, 799 pounds. Take me back further than that, because this didn't start at 16, right? When was your first memory of having to use food to help you to feel better? Your earliest memory, do you remember that?
Yeah, actually, going back, I always had a passion to eat food. I always desired, I looked forward to it. I remember walking through just even the school cafeteria and trying to see what's up today, what's going on, what food do they have today, or walking into the grocery store and seeing all the donuts and Mom, could I buy this? Mom, could I have that? So I always had a love and desire for food. It kind of brought me that comfort, if you will, but I never put it together that it was something that eased anxiety or panic or depression. As a young man, you don't really think about that stuff, as a teenager or a child. But yeah, I remember I would always look forward to food. In fact, I do remember I was in kindergarten for half days. And my dad was a stay-at-home dad because he hurt himself really bad at work. And so he actually stayed home and my mom was working. And I would come home and I would always expect lunch to be there. And when lunch wasn't there, I literally would throw a fit. I remember throwing a fit. Dad, where's the lunch? Where's the lunch? And I start crying, like like somebody stole my candy bar or something as a kid. I couldn't, I just couldn't comprehend why lunch wouldn't be ready on the table. And we had our ups and downs in those moments. So I can remember all the way back to kindergarten, to answer your question, as to where I started that comfort feeling of food. Not that I was getting picked on in that young age in school or anything. It's just something I looked forward to.
Right, right. And that question comes from personal experience. I have my oldest son. I remember him being in kindergarten and me asking him how school was, and all he shared with me was how lunch went. Right? So I know that for him, even as an infant, food was very, very important to him. His first word was rice in Spanish, because we're Latin, right? So his first word wasn't mom or dad. It was the word arroz, which means rice, because he wanted it, right? So this started way before. So I was wondering if that was the same for you, where your first memories of comfort are food, and enjoying that. So, and in kindergarten, now, when you first started to realize, or your parents started to realize that you had an increased weight issue, I believe I heard or read or something about you being in second grade and having that. Can you share a little bit with me about that?
Yes, in elementary school, I was a bigger kid. I mean, going through my whole elementary school age, I remember, man, I was twice, sometimes three sizes bigger than the other kids. And elementary school was awesome though, man. I mean, kids liked me. I was like the bodyguard. Like the kids would literally like, don't mess with my friends, or I'm gonna sit on you type thing. I remember in recess, kids would lay on me like I was a pillow, or actually story time. It was story time. And they would lay on me like I was a pillow or something. And a teacher would ask, like, "Does this bother you?" And I said, "No." I mean, it was just normal to me. I actually didn't recognize that I was this huge kid, but I was. I was double, triple the size of those kids. So I believe it was second grade, third grade, roughly between those ages, school grades, that the nurse weighed me, and I was almost 200 pounds at, I mean, how old would that be? Second, third grade. I don't remember offhand, but you're a child. And I had a huge frame. I was a huge kid. And yeah, so I can go back that far into elementary school to recognize I had a weight struggle and a weight problem. Now, my mom, she tried to put me on diet after diet after diet, because she was a bigger person too, and she still is. And she would put me on things like Slim Fast or a yogurt diet, or they tried Atkins for a while, and all these different things as I was actually a child slash teenager, and to no avail, because it wasn't a mental change. It was just a physical thing that I did to try to make my mom happy, because I didn't recognize I had to change, at that early age. So yeah, I can think back into the elementary school to where my size was huge.
All right, great. Thank you. Ellie, I'm going to leave it to you for the next question.
Yes. So I have a ton of questions, but I guess to start, eating is really like a social thing for a lot of people. So like even when we're very young, eating with our friends at school, we're eating, at the dinner table with our family. And even as adults, you go out to eat with friends. So it's a social thing. Did that ever change for you once you got to a certain weight, or did you ever feel ashamed of eating with people, or did that kind of stay constant with your social group?
So earlier on in my life, I don't recall feeling ashamed or anything with eating with other kids or other people. But as I recognized as a teenager that I had a weight problem, I started feeling insecure about eating food around other people. So I do remember at one point, I would try to, in front of people, I would just eat a little bit, like, okay, just have a sandwich. But after everybody disappeared, it's like just me in the kitchen, baby, because I'm going to go in there and I'm going to have what I want to have. And so, yeah, I would be insecure at first, especially around people I didn't know. Now, my parents, I could, relax a little bit. I didn't get so concerned about that. Now, when we went out to eat, it was a special occasion as a kid, as a teenager, because we didn't go out to eat very often. We lived in it was mostly poverty. And when we did go out to eat, it's a special treat. So we went, and we would, pretty much everybody would have a big amount of food. We just didn't settle for like a salad and an appetizer, but we went like big sandwiches, and then French fries, and buffets especially are my favorite. I would go to buffets and eat what I wanted. Felt a little insecure because people watching me, but it wasn't too bad. But today, I am fine because I have portion control. And if I want to have an extra helping, I will. I don't feel bad about it because it's not a lifestyle anymore. It's something I just do normally now. I just eat normal and I'm totally okay with that.
Nice. So you mentioned that like you used food as a coping skill to make you feel better because you did suffer from depression and anxiety. What are some of the coping skills that you learned to replace that with?
There's a lot. So number one, I'd say exercise.
Mhm.
I love to exercise. I love lifting weights. I love cardiovascular exercises. You'll catch me at the gym pretty much 5, 6 days a week, 7 if I could, but I like taking a day off. So that's number one. Secondly, be just going for walks. And I don't consider that always an exercise, but more of like a mental exercise for me, just to kind of relax a minute, just a stroll. Nothing, nothing intense or anything like that. I do love listening to music. I am definitely into doing my own thing now, like helping other people. That helps me cope. That helps me succeed because I want to help people, and I myself have to be in a good place to be able to help somebody else. I can think about church. I can think about helping and assisting and serving in the church, reading my Bible, praying, family activities. I mean, I can go on and on. So it's interesting because you can replace one thing with so many other things, and if you just let go and take off those lenses for a second and then put new lenses on, you can open your eyes to a whole new world of opportunity to replace with that food. And the things that I'm using now as coping, if you will, they don't bring harm to me, so I feel better about these things because food would just leave me high and dry. I ate until I was stuffed, until I was full, and then more, and I ate more. I felt bad, so I ate more. It was a cycle that never stopped. But I can do the other things now. And yeah, you can abuse exercise, you can abuse going for walks, sure, but it's not, it doesn't happen because it's not damaging to me, and I know balance now. So I replaced them with a variety of things, really.
Wow.
And Justin, where did you learn those mechanisms? How did you learn those? Did you have a mentor? Were you, taken to someone to teach you these things? How did you come about knowing that these things were going to work for you?
They just developed over time. It was just something. I mean, I did have people in my life who spoke into my life, accountability partners, physical therapists, occupational therapists would come to my house as I was trying to lose weight from being so big. They kind of helped me get back in the swing of life again. And then, so they kind of taught me exercise a little bit more, it's good to do this, or introduced me to new foods and stuff like that. In the hospital, I had experience with Jesus. So that shifted my heart to a different direction. And then I started understanding that I have a new identity. I don't have to live as what I felt at that point. I felt like I could just say the words, right? Lardo. I thought I was a fatty. I thought I was a loser, right? Like, how could anybody love me? My parents had to. They're my parents. My friends had to because they choose to be my friends, right? But I didn't think anything highly of myself. And when Jesus met me, I started changing my perspective on who I am as a person. I was a different person. So yeah, it changed the game for me as I believed something different about myself. I started living differently.
Because it sounds like accountability is huge then for this entire process, right? Whether you hold yourself accountable or someone else is holding you accountable.
Right. Yes. Accountability was a huge asset to my success. I can say that. I had people on speed dial all the time. And, my physical therapist who would come to my house to help me start getting back into the swing of moving again, she actually was one of the people I would go to. And she would let me call her all the time. Her name is Melody, and I said, Melody, calling her. I'm really tempted to get pizza because I lived right above a convenience store, so I could just move down there, go get a pizza, go get a candy, cookies, or whatever. My brother, he had autism. He has autism, and I took advantage of that because I was a mean little brother, and I instigated him. I said, Chad, go buy me some candy bars, and if you don't, I'm gonna bend your finger back or something, And I wasn't a good kid at that point, and he would go do it. And so, yeah, accountability became a huge asset to my success. And so I had a lot of people speak into my life to help me, to hold me accountable. I call them. And so when I felt tempted to go down to mini marts or wherever, I would call the person, text them, hey, you need to like pray for me right now, or call me, or come to my house and lock me in my room, because I am tempted to go do something I'm not supposed to be doing. So
Oh yeah, we all know how that feels.
Yeah.
Stacy, what questions do you have?
One of my questions I definitely have, because I just with the world how it is right now, what got you to do this? I know you were talking about your faith, but that didn't get you to go into like any type of surgeries. I feel like sometimes that can be a quick go-to for people. And how did you, what got you to be like, I'm not going to go that route. I have the motivation to do it this way, because that's a lot of weight, quite honestly, to lose without what you see now with everybody getting these type of surgeries these days.
it's interesting you asked that, because that's actually a really awesome story that happened in my life. So I honestly was scheduled to get a type of stomach, I believe, I don't know what the terminology is of it, but it was like a gastric bypass type of surgery, stomach stapling, whatever you want to call it. And I remember I had an appointment with the doctor. I was huge. I was still probably almost 600, 700 pounds, right? And I had the appointment with the doctor, the surgeon, and that doctor was going to be in Pittsburgh. So I went to Pittsburgh once and we talked and had an appointment. And she looked at me and said, "You've already lost like 100 pounds." She goes, "Justin, why do you want to have this surgery if you're already losing weight?" Because I forget how old I was at that point. I think it was like a year later. Not quite a year later. That's what it was. Not quite a year later. Because about 100 and some pounds down from when I started my journey. So I was going to actually utilize the surgery to help me, but she was really impressed. And she's like, "Don't do it if you don't have to." Now, I don't knock anybody or speak against it. I have friends who had it done. I have more people I contact on a regular basis who have it done. And I always just tell them, it's not the answer. It might help you and assist you in the moment, but you got to change a lot in your mindset to make this thing a lifestyle and not some quick fix. It's not going to fix you. I have friends who regret getting it done, and you just got to be in a really good place, because that's actually, they prep you for the surgery. It's not just going in for something physical. They actually put you through some mental treatments, if you will. I don't know the terminology of that, but like something to help with your mind to get it, fixed before you enter the surgery.
Absolutely. I mean, we've known people who have done it and it's great for them if it works for them. But I just know that sometimes the motivation to keep that off, you can have the surgery and a year later start to spiral a little bit. So for you to be able to do that without an additional help in that way is just amazing to me, because I can't even like lose 20 pounds half the time on my own, let alone something like that. And speaking of, how did you get through the pandemic? I mean, everyone in this world was struggling at some point. Like, I was in healthcare, so I still had to go to work every day. But the gyms were closed, Door Dashes and Grubhubs became like the new norm to get your meals. Victim over here of a DoorDash. How did you not fall?
Still do it.
I still do it.
Still do it.
I wasn't going to say it, but I do. How did you not fall victim into that? It's so easy in that time frame with the stress, anxiety, the unknown, and on top of everything else what was going on in the world.
So I too had to work throughout the pandemic. I worked in the mental health field, so I had to take care of individuals who had some intellectual and mental disabilities.
Okay.
And so I had to work every day, basically, 5-6 days a week. And I was active. I had to be at work. I had to be moving around, helping them with their house, helping them with the assisted living stuff, medications, all that stuff. So I had to be on the front lines with that. Now, that being said, I did miss the gym because everything closes down. Like, this is crazy. Now, the good news is outside, you could walk around. So you can go running, go walking, all that. I did pick up some weights from Walmart, but they were really hard to purchase because every time I went, they were gone for like weeks. Gone. And I was just so annoyed. I'm like, I just want some weights, and I would be texting my buddies, "Hey, do you guys have a gym you're going to?" and all this stuff. So I got through it because I think working definitely helped. I was hopeful to stay healthy during, because it was so new. Like, how do you keep your immune system healthy? How do you, obviously it's not by eating a bunch of sugar and sitting here all day, exercising. I just stayed as active as I could. I bought a stepper, one of those little up and down aerobic steppers. So I just kind of did that while I was watching TV or on the phone, walking around. I did everything I could to stay healthy. And it drove me insane because exercise became this new fix for me, replacement of the food, like we talked about a little bit ago. And I didn't have that endorphin rush from not going to a gym. I missed the gym. So I didn't get the same feeling. I didn't get the same experience. but I tried hard to stay active throughout because of a couple different reasons. One, my example to other people, and number two, I just wanted to be healthy. I didn't want to go back because I remember where I was and I didn't want to go back to that. So that's what kept me motivated throughout the pandemic.
Right. I love how you mentioned the endorphins because yeah, you know, when you have an addiction, that's what you're getting, that rush of endorphins. So whether it's a food rush or you replace that with an exercise rush, you know, we have the ability to do that. It is mindset, just like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to talk about the one thing that you credit all this to, and that's Jesus, right? Your faith. Talk to us about that.
Yes, my life is sincerely different now. I could talk about this segment about faith all day long because it is such a near and dear to my heart. It is such a transformation. It is such a new way of life, right? The way I was living life just wasn't working. I was killing myself physically, spiritually. I just wasn't in a good place. And I didn't seem like I wanted my life anymore. It was like I was eating myself to death. I was consuming myself to death. Death was knocking on my door. If I would have kept going, obviously, I wouldn't be here today. And so I remembered someone told me about Jesus back in the day, a couple years prior to this. And it was attractive just because it sounded so comforting. It sounded so good. It sounded so, and it just kind of attracted me to kind of go to that. Like I was drawn. And I kind of held that in my heart for a couple years, and as time went on, I recognized especially when I was 16, sitting in a hospital bed in Pittsburgh, I remember that I had to actually do something about it. I couldn't do this anymore. I had to be a different person. And so I called on Jesus to help me. I called him to assist me. And I just wanted to be a different person. And it changed my life forever. I accepted what he did for me. And I also believed what he said about me in his word, and obviously speaking to my heart, right? And it was a lot of undoing in my old way. It was a lot of growth. I had to be a different man. I just couldn't be the same kid anymore. So that took a while. I was perfect the first day I said a prayer and accepted Jesus. I haven't sinned one time since. No, I it's
Sorry,
been a
I
while.
can't say the same.
Nah.
It's been
Me neither.
it's been a mature walk. It's been a maturity type of walk, right? It's growth. It's every day you learn something new. It's every day you just continue surrendering things over to him, and it's a growth thing. So I'm a different guy today because of that.
I just find it interesting that this happened when you were a teenager, and usually teenagers, they don't know who they are, right? They're going through all different kinds of challenges and hormonal changes, and that's a really hard time. I find that they're not open to religion, to faith, and to Jesus at that time, but you were able to do different in that same age range. What was it? Could you identify one thing, or is it just that you were so done? Sometimes you're so done with that you feel that you've hit rock bottom that you like, you know what, I'll try anything because what have I got to lose? Was it a moment like that or something else?
It honestly was just recognizing that I wasn't in a good place, and I was scared of dying. That was another thing. I was in a
Right.
really tough spot of death potentially could be happening, right? It could be in my near future. And so faith became more of a reality. I think a lot of kids, teenagers especially, like there could be a belief there. There could be an actual desire to want to know more about God one day. But a lot of kids they want to have fun, right? They put the quotations up there. They don't want to give their life to something that's gonna tell them to not do something to keep them from trouble, because that's why God says not to do certain things. He spares us from the hurt that come with those things, not to be a killjoy. So I just was afraid of dying, and I wanted to know. I knew about God, knew about Jesus. So, you know what? I just better get my life right now because I don't have 20 years. I don't have 30 years. I got to do this. And so it was just I was drawn. And like I said a little bit earlier, I was already drawn. It was just waiting for that right moment. And I think God just orchestrates those moments for the right times, the right season, the right moment. And here I am. I started to follow that. And it wasn't perfect, believe me. I still had problems. I still man, I still did things that kids do, right? And young people do. I still couldn't control my desires at times. I still couldn't, all these different things were still normal, but they were just becoming less and less as I started growing and maturing in my faith.
Right. And I think people think that when you're a believer, right, as we call ourselves who have a belief in a higher power, that bad things are not going to happen to you, right? And when bad things do happen to you, they're like, well, where's God now, right? What happened to God, right? It doesn't mean that we're not going to have bad things happen. Bad things happen to believers as well, right? What we have is that faith, is that thing that helps us get through that journey, that brings some clarity to what's happening to us and allows us to do something with that, right? What I call finding your purpose through your pain. And it sounds like you've done that as well, right? You've also found purpose. Talk to me about what you're doing now and how you're fulfilling that purpose.
So I took my history and the overcoming of the tough moments in my life from losing 600 pounds. I took everything that I've gone through, just like many have, who take what they've gone through, and I made it a passion. I made it something that had become a passion and a desire to make sure others don't go through the same thing. Or if they are going through the same thing, I want to rescue them from it. I want to help them out of that pit. I want to show them that there's hope and they don't have to sit there. They don't have to be a victim to that any longer. In my field, it's food. In my field, it's obesity. In my field, it's being unhealthy. And I don't want anybody to experience that. I believe that you can have a great life, a full life, an amazing life that's healthy and you can prevent disease from happening so early in your life. You can do so many great things by being a healthy person. So I take my history, I take what I've learned over the years, because you learn a lot going through it. You experiment, you fail, you win, you fail, you win, and you just, whatever worked, you kind of take that and put it in here, and you munch on that, you keep that, and you just keep that in your head knowledge, right? And the other things that you tried didn't work, you throw it out. It didn't work. And so you gain all that over time. And now I'm equipped with answers from my experience and from learning to help others. So I rescue people from themselves, man. I coach them. I do wellness and health coaching. I author books. I started a new podcast, which I'm totally stoked about, because it's awesome. I get to share my heart to the world, and whoever wants to hear it, open your ears and listen. I'm a motivational speaker. I get to speak to people and tell them how awesome they are and how they can have hope. I mean, it's fulfilling to me, because it took what I used to be and erases it. And now I can use my pain to bring somebody freedom. It's mind blowing to me, because wow, like that's passion. That's an amazing feeling, to be a hand to somebody who needs it.
Right. Absolutely. It doesn't feel like you're going to work every day, right? It feels different. Totally.
Yes.
Ellie, I'm coming back to you.
Yes. So I'm interested in understanding a little bit more about your you said you had panic attacks, right? Because I also struggle with panic attacks in the past and the present. What are some of those? When did those panic attacks start? How did you manage through them? And do you still get them today?
At 14, they started. I remember one night I woke up in the middle of the night. I had to use the restroom, and I noticed my heart was just racing. Like, this was abnormal. I didn't notice it before like this, and it kind of overwhelmed me. So I got this really, really, this big adrenaline rush in my stomach. And like if you see a bear or something, you're like, you're just kind of like, whoa. So I had that feeling, and then my heart would just, it was like just pounding, pounding, pounding. So I wake up my parents and I said, I'm having a heart attack. I'm freaking out. And they, no, you're not. You're 14 or whatever it was at that point. I think it was 13, 14. And I'm like, yes, I am. Yes, I am. So of course they don't call 911. They take me up by the car, and they know I wasn't dying. I was just freaking out. And then the doctors at the emergency room were like, yeah, you probably just having a little panic attack. So they admitted me into the hospital. And then they put me on a couple different medications to try to help me through that anxiety and panic attacks. To no avail, really. They didn't really help. They were just kind of that. I mean, they took the edge off a little bit, but there was still a root problem there. There was still something I wasn't dealing with. And I just took the medications eventually, and food became a new drug. That's what worked for me, the food. And so that's when that started. I was consuming so much food, ballooning up, got to 16. That's when I weighed 799. And then I had to undo that panic disorder. And over the years, I'm trying to think how many, it was several years, to where I finally was at a place to control them. Now, where am I at today? I would say I'm 99% free from them. But there's always a moment that when something new comes up, I can easily start having those thoughts, right? It's kind of like a visit to the past. It's like you start thinking about what if, you start thinking how things could go wrong, you start thinking about, and all of a sudden, you're having a hard time breathing. All of a sudden, your heart's starting to race. All of a sudden, you start freaking out. So you got to tell yourself, whoa, dude, chill out. You're okay. You're fine. You're not going back there. You're not dying. Snap out of it, kind of some self-talk with some prayer, of course, and just trying to get out of that. So I would say the last one I have is probably 3-4 weeks ago. It was in the middle of the night. I kind of sat out of bed and I just felt weird. Probably from thinking about so much going on at what I'm doing today. There's a lot to do. And I just think it's just very overwhelming sometimes. I think those things can trigger, of course, some anxiety, which at times when you're weak and tired, you can't always get a grip on those things, because tiredness really does make you weak sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. And so it lasted for, I don't know, about a minute actually, but it wasn't like the full throttle of a panic attack. It was just like, I know where this is going. Chill out, chill out, chill out. And self-talk, prayer, get your mind focused on something different, and it totally just goes away.
No. So obviously you've made like this complete transformation, not just physically, but you've made a lifestyle change for yourself. Are there parts like your teenage self or your childhood self that still come out or like play in the back of your head at all?
Yes. Sometimes I think about, as a kid, I didn't get to have the life that some other kids had. I was kind of confined to a bed for a little bit. I was not able to play football like I wanted to. I mean, I wanted to play football when I was in elementary school, and the coach told me I was too big, so I couldn't play. And I go back to those moments sometimes, like, man, if life just could have been different. Now, I'm totally okay. I don't like just focus on those thoughts the whole time and the whole day. It doesn't get me down. But for a minute, I'm just like, man, that stinks. I wish I could have been different. Or I wish my parents would have been more stern with me and strict with me about food. I wish I was more knowledgeable about how I would turn out. I wish that anxiety and panic didn't exist, right? So those things can flash in my mind. And we all think all day. We can think all day. I wish this didn't happen, wish this didn't happen. But the truth is it did. And there's nothing I can do about it now. But I can just heal from it and move forward, right?
Yeah, and I think for all of us that we can probably relate, like those thoughts are never going to go away. We each have that little voice in our head from when we were a kid or a teenager that sticks with us, and those thoughts never truly go away, but it's about finding a way to move past it and recognize like this is the present, we're not in the past. And it sounds like you've been able to find things to comfort you and not go back to that place, so that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Also acceptance, right? I think acceptance of what has happened to you and what your past has been is huge in healing and in moving forward. Stacey.
So that brings me to a two-part question. So you were talking about how you also work in the mental healthcare. Do you think that has anything that you went into that field for any reason that your past with anxiety or your brother with autism, do you think that had any influence to where you are today career-wise?
Absolutely. For sure, my brother having autism struck me. And it kind of, growing up with a person with autism, he wasn't severe, which was, there's days where you can't tell, but there's some mannerisms that you can see it. And I just know because I recognize his diagnosis, right? But yeah, it certainly motivated me to help others because, man, it seriously, it's a great feeling to assist those who want to be functioning members of society. Like that's what it's all about. These guys and gals who you assist, like we got to look at them not with somebody with disability, but you look at them as an individual in society, right? They're people. We're people. We're all the same. Nobody's better than the other. They're not, just because you have a disability of some sort doesn't make you less significant. Everybody matters and everybody's valued. And so I took that because I wanted to be somebody to help those individuals, and my job was awesome. I started out just by taking them back into the world, right? Like, let's go to Walmart. Let's go to this place. Let's go out to eat. Let's spend our money. Let's save our money. I got to be able to teach them that stuff. Let's show you how to clean again. Let's just do this. And they were able to live on their own. Some lived in a group home. So, and I would teach them medications and stuff like that. And then eventually I got promoted to oversee 2 residential homes as a supervisor. And then I was able to help individuals in men's homes. I was able to help them. They were a little more severe, but it was still a great opportunity to assist them. And it brought a lot of fulfillment to me. And it was a really hard situation, really hard career to walk away from, because my wife and I and stepson moved to Texas. That was in Pennsylvania where I had that job. And I had a really, really tough time leaving that because it was so amazing. And right now I'm focusing on my own career. So I never know what's going to happen in the future, if I'm going to get involved with something like that again. But yeah, definitely was motivated by what my brother, what he had and was diagnosed with. And also, I'm sure deep down, if I were to think about it, depression, anxiety kind of go into that category as well at times. And so, yeah, I'm sure my whole life kind of triggered where I ended up working. And I think sometimes God just does that. It's like, all right, you went through this. You learned a lot from this. I'm going to walk you to this next destination. And here, you're going to walk through this and you're going to help other people get out of their situation as well.
And that brings me to my other question, $1 million question. Everything that you went through, would you change any of it from your outcome where you are today? Would any of that, we talked about your childhood, wishing you could, but at the end of the day, would you have changed anything that you have went through?
So in the moment you look at it and you say yes, because you're going through it, right? And nobody wants to go through the negative things and the sad things and the hard things. But when you get out of it, you recognize how much growth, how much maturity, how you came through it and where you're at today. If I didn't go through it, I wouldn't be who I am today, right? Just like everybody in this room right now, if you didn't go through the tough moment of your life, you wouldn't be who you are today. Now, you have to allow life to mold and shape you into a positive direction and not take you down a negative direction, because you can go 2 ways with it. You can play victim, and I don't say that in a cruel way, but let's be realistic, right? You can take your situation that you were dealt with. Life hands you deals you cards sometimes, and they're not always good cards. But you do what you can to grow from those moments, to get through those moments, and to somehow just come out on top from those moments. And then you allow those things to grow you and you take a step forward. Now, if you sat there and said, I went through this, poor me, you're going to have a really tough time coping with what you're going through. In the moment, you're all going to say that, right? We all say that. But when you come out of it, you can't say, man, that was terrible. I'm just going to sit here and play a victim of that. But no, you can't do that. You have to move forward. It changes the game when you have a positive perspective on things.
Absolutely.
As someone in the mental health field, something that I stand firm in is, you are going to have bad days. You are going to think negatively. You are going to play victim. It's just human nature, and it's about giving yourself a little bit of grace. Like, I'm going to feel this right now. And yeah, maybe today it's really not my day. And I feel like being negative, and it's going to be a little ugly today, and that's fine. But tomorrow doesn't have to be. I'll go to sleep, and tomorrow doesn't have to be like today.
Right. Definitely, you choose to think differently. And I've had days, honestly, there's days where I've been homesick, right? I'm in Texas now. It's been 3-4 months now. I miss Pennsylvania. And there's days where I kind of felt depressed, right? Man, kind of homesick. And there's days where I cried, days where I was unmotivated to do anything. I'll be honest with you, but you pick yourself up, you cry for a minute, you have a bad moment for sure. and then you kind of eat your bowl of ice cream, watch your shows, and then you move on, right? You have to do that. You can't stay there. So you're absolutely right, Ellie. You got to give yourself some grace, and that's something that was important to touch on, because you can't just sit here and say, well, I had a bad day, so I'm going to continue having bad days. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to have a bad moment, but it's not okay to stay in that moment. That's the difference.
Yep.
That's right. I had a coach who told me once, you can have a bad day, but don't let it last more than 24 hours, right? After those 24 hours, that's it. Pity party over. Let's get moving. Let's get back up there, right?
Mhm.
I always say things, life is about perspective and choice. It's how you see the things that are happening to you and the choices that you make based on that perspective, right? So what would you say today if you had a chance to speak to 16-year-old Justin? What would you say to him?
I would share with Justin that food wasn't in his value system. I think that's the biggest thing. I think I found so much fulfillment and love and acceptance in a substance, in something like food. And I would remind him that he matters more than that, and that that's going to hurt him one day if he continues down that road. So I remind him of his worth and value. I remind him the importance of self-control and discipline. I'd remind him that he mattered and he was loved and valued, and it would hopefully motivate young Justin to think outside the box a little bit and not so tunnel vision on just one thing, right? So that's what I would tell my young self.
That's beautiful. Thank you. That brings me to my next segment is I would love to hear your mantra, your statement, your go-to phrase. What is yours, Justin?
Yes, it all starts with one step. I tell everybody that. I tell
Love it.
my clients that, because that's how it all started.
Love
with
it.
me. It's one step at a time. That's all I could take at one point. Got out of bed, took one step, sat back down. It's a motivating catchphrase that I use, and it's not overwhelming because it doesn't look at the whole picture. It looks at one step in front of you.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Ellie, what's yours?
Mine would be you and the world will adjust.
Hey, amen. Mine is usually whenever I went through something that was traumatizing, fearful for me, I would tell myself, faith overcomes fear. And I would just say that to myself over and over and over until I started to believe that my faith would overcome my fear. And usually it did. Stacy.
So I can't be serious about much. Let's be honest. If you know me, if you worked with me, this phrase was on my desk all the time. I literally can't even. And not to be negative, but that's how I dealt with things. I literally can't even. Please leave my office. Like that's pretty much how I would just do everything moving on in life. Is I literally can't even. I think a lot of people will relate to that one. Just
Yes.
my purpose, but absolutely everyone's catchphrases are great, but I think sometimes
you just can't even.
Sometimes you just can't.
You can't.
Amazing. Okay, so Justin, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, what we can see on your website. Tell us all about that.
Yes. If you're interested in learning more about who I am, my story, if you want to be motivated, you want inspiration and encouragement, you can find me at justinwilloughby.com. That's my hub. That's my website. My Facebook and Instagram are found on there. You can also search for me if you want to listen to an amazing podcast, 600 Pounds Down. You can check that out. Go to your Apple podcast app or go on Spotify and type in 600 Pounds Down and hear this guy talking and let you be encouraged and motivated, man. That's how you can get a hold of me. Instagram, Facebook, podcast, website. And yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to have you guys check it out.
And for everybody, the information is scrolling on the bottom. Amazing story. Thank you so much, Justin, for being here with us today. I'm going to bring us into my why, right? And why I am doing this podcast and why I do what I do myself. And that is because I am bringing attention to the National Bone Marrow Registry. My daughter was diagnosed with leukemia at the age of 7 months old. Through that journey, I learned, because she needed a bone marrow transplant for the type of leukemia that she had. And because Hispanics have a very low presence on that registry, I found that it was going to be very difficult for us to find a match for my daughter. Nobody in the family was a match for her. So we had to search for an unrelated donor within that registry. And thankfully, we did find that match. But what I learned through that journey was that, guess who didn't have a match? I didn't have a match. I was able to take the information that the doctors provided to me to see if I was a match for my daughter, enter that information, and found that there was nobody out there for me. There was nobody out there for my other 2 children. So my daughter Isabella was the only one that stood a chance at fighting this very dangerous disease. She unfortunately succumbed to her illness a year later after being diagnosed, but we continue to bring attention to this very important information in her honor. So for anyone that wants more information on that, my website is izzy'slegacy.com. And on that, you can learn about me. You can learn about the mission. My book that's coming up now in January is called When the Answer is No, Finding Purpose Through Pain. You can learn about
Pre-ordered.
that. That's right.
Already pre-ordered. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. And the most important thing about that is that you can join the registry right from that website. So anybody who is inspired by Isabella, by her story, by what we're doing here today, you can join that registry right from the comfort of your home. One-stop shop for everything. So I want to thank everyone for joining us, for listening to Justin's story. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gabrielle Morales, and I am a recruitment coordinator for Be The Match. My journey with Be The Match actually began when I was only 9 years old. At that point, my 7-month-old baby sister was diagnosed with an extremely rare form of leukemia. Through the Be The Match registry, we were able to find a matching donor for my sister. And although a few months later, we lost her, her cancer was cured. Our family is so thankful for the additional months that we had with my sister. And ever since then, I've made a promise to myself to dedicate my life to helping children just like Isabella and helping families like ours by continuing her legacy. Hence why I now work for Be The Match. I love what I do so much, and I'm able to spread awareness about the huge need for more donors on the registry, especially those of diverse backgrounds. There is currently a huge disparity within the registry for minority patients, and we need your help. It is so simple to save a life and to be put on the registry. You can visit izzyslegacy.com or text Izzy's Legacy to the number 61474 to start the registration process to be on the Be The Match registry, to hopefully be a life-saving match for a searching patient in need.